So, what hat did you choose to put on last time? Was it helpful? If you didn't catch the last episode, I really encourage you to go back and listen, either now or after this one. In that conversation, we explored clarity, aligned choices, and ended up reflecting on the different hats we wear. And we did this together with leadership coach Tom Rosenak. Tom brings over 25 years of experience working with teams and individuals. He has a wonderful way of connecting the inner and outer aspects of leadership, from your voice to your impact, and from your intentions to the momentum you create. And all of it beautiful, rooted in the story of Acres of Diamonds. A powerful reminder that what you're searching for might already be within you. So, hats back on, curiosity turned on. Let's jump right back into the conversation with Tom. I'm Hanna Zaxmy, your leadership coach, and this podcast is your confidence boost in color. Let's go. Now we talked about a bit of clarity, vision, and values. One thing that I think it's also alignment in the sense that it's around identity. I have been working with that word now for, I think, at least 2 years, like trying to see from different perspective. From first, I really thought it was just really a hard one. I never understand it, etc. But the more I go from different perspectives, I think it's a rather interesting word, identity, in that sense. What is your relationship around identity in your work?
Yeah. So this is interesting. I think of a polarity. And in this polarity, there's both under identification and over identification. And what I mean by that is you are a whole being, and you could be a wife, a mother, a friend, a teacher, a podcast host, and all of those things aren't who you are, but are expressions of who you are, different expressions. And so you play different roles. And since we brought the hat out, you wear many hats. And so I have a caution and an encouragement. And so in our culture, we've suffered from over identification, particularly around race and gender. And even what we do now, it's a marketing thing with demographic, with age. We too much say, the Gen Zs and it's human beings. And I read ancient scripture, and human beings haven't changed as much as we thought they have. We still have jealousy and anger and all of the things that those characters 2,000 years had ago, and we struggle with this. And so I don't want to say don't make distinctions, because there are differences in seasons and age and certainly gender and race, but over identification is dehumanizing. You're part of my thing or you're not. And so when you think of identity, like a cow, I don't know if they do this in Sweden, but they brand the cow, and people brand themselves. And there's a danger. But then if you say, okay, well, that's dangerous, don't do it. Well, you can't navigate life without identifying. I'm consciously aware that I have a certain experience. I come from a certain background. There's cultural realities. I don't want to lock it out, but I don't want to make it my whole thing either. Coming back to our theme today on clarity is asking, how invested am I in this identity? I mean, there's less today, but there were males that if they lost their job, they would feel like they're nobody. And now, because people change jobs 7 times. It used to be they came out of high school and they stayed pretty much at the same company, and they get these promotions, and all of a sudden they get laid off and they're lost. So I would say pay attention to your identity, but remember, you aren't your identity. You are a human being, and all of that what that means, body, mind, and spirit. And yes, you might be Swedish, and that's helpful, and we can have fun with that. And you might be a wife, and we could go down the list of your. So it's meaningful to a point in understanding you. It's not the soul of who you are. Most of our identities are pretty much given to us. And then we go to the opposite extreme in our culture that you can just create whatever identity you want. That's a lie too. No, you really can't. There are realities, objective realities within the identify. And for me to identify as a National Basketball Association player is a worthless pursuit. I can put NBA on my shirt. It's like, no, short, fat, white guy who can't move and old. No, not NBA. And that's not negative thinking. That's to say we want to paint on a canvas of possibilities, but we want to be in the real world too. There are limitations and they're not negatives.
The more I think about this is like, yes, we all have different gifts and skills and such that we have. Some we have practiced and some we don't have, so to say. So that is a lifelong learning, the identity. I think I never will really understand my full identity during my lifetime. I guess I'm getting better and better each day.
Well, seeking it is good. I just want to caution you that all of your quote identities you transcend, but they include those. You're more than that, beyond that. And these identities are stepping stones in your path to clarity. But I just want that caution to stay in there because you aren't those identities. They're part of you, but they aren't you.
And I think it's the better I'm becoming to separate performance from, so to say, identity, in that sense that performance for me is more like a role, like I'm CEO or something like that. That is performance for me more. If the better I'm separating those from who I'm really am, truly are, Hanna, so to say, the more joy I have in that sense, the more relaxed I am who I am. And then I think I'm more the true self, the authentic part of me. At that time, I'm showing more of that authenticity instead of playing a role in that sense.
Yeah. So I hear that, and it's very lovely. And I would just say you are investing who you are into the role. And so it's reversing the order. Instead of the role defining me, you're taking your definitions and investing them in the role. And that's qualitatively different. It's who's the master, same thing with money. Have a relationship with money. Is money mastering you or are you mastering money? Is your role mastering you? And it's a mixed bag, which is why you need clarity and alignment. And it's not an event. One day you look and you say, I was making progress here, but I was swept up in this. And this isn't as important. Back to values.
It's so many angles on this one. And
yes, perspectives.
Yeah, definitely. We touched upon that in the last conversation because then we talked a lot about confidence, because I think that the better I'm aligned in the clarity and values and everything there, the more confidence I'm also having, in that sense that it will solve in some way, even though I don't have all the answers, etc. But I still have a confidence that I am capable of doing things and taking in that direction. When you should explain confidence, so how would you explain it?
Well, I like to go to the root etymology of a word. The word confidence means with faith. So it's not the absence of fear because we're scared witless. It's not the sense of feeling we have all the answers because we don't. It's believing that what you do matters. And if you wait till you have all the answers or you know how to do it well, we're not going to get your podcast. We're not going to get your acronym. We're not going to get all that beauty you bring because you didn't know. You had a movement of the heart and you started before you were ready. And some of the things you did not work. So the question is, there is an emotion of confidence, but that comes only after you have the skill. So if there's something you do regularly and you do it well, you feel confident when you do that and you do it automatically, whether it's signing your name with your dominant hand or whatever. And that's confidence on one level. But the kind of confidence you're talking about has to come before we feel confident. Like you weren't confident you were going to pass that exam. You didn't feel confident. And so the kind of confidence that that we're talking about is a decision, not an emotion.
Mm,
I have value. I'm willing to struggle, to stay curious, to learn, to grow. But I'm also telling the truth. I don't really know how to do this. I have a
mm,
desire to do it. I believe I can learn to do it. But if you give me a test today, I'll probably fail. So my truth statement around there is always start before you're ready. Start, think big, even bigger. Start small, even smaller, and keep moving. But move from that confidence, which is just faith, that this process, I don't know what it's going to result in, but it's going to result in a better me and a better world. I
mm,
believe that. Because
mm,
if you don't believe that, you're not willing to go through the frustrations. And it is frustrating. Doing something you've never done before doesn't get easier as you get older. But the confidence comes because you learned to ride a bike and you thought, I'll never get this, and you got it. And you can go back in your life and see everything you do fairly automatically at one time you learned. So you must know how to do that. Driving a stick shift is what I used to use as an example, but a lot of the young professionals have never driven in a stick shift. But enough of the audience has to know the first time you do it, you don't just put in the clutch, put it in first, put in the clutch, put it in second. It goes, and I said, well, wasn't that frustrating? They said, yeah, but I wanted to learn how to drive. And I said, why? Well, I wanted to be able to leave my parents and take my girlfriend on a date. So the desire that makes the person learn is bigger than the fear. And they do have fear that says, oh, what a clumsy teenager you are. You can't drive a stick. Well, I'm
mm,
going to learn. So that is this process. So if we feed the desire, the frustration's still there, but it's less debilitating. Okay, so you're not very smooth. And then I
mm.
said, did you get to a point when you could tune the radio and shift the car at the same time? And they said, yeah. Well, when were you really confident? When your dad was saying, you're never going to learn this, kid. But you said, yes, I will, because I want to get away from you. So I use that example because that's it true in any learning. If there's not a desire moving you forward,
Mm,
the awkwardness and the clumsiness, especially with public speaking. Your knees are knocking and your voice is trembling, and you're afraid. You're remembering the fourth grade teacher that was standing there, and you're like this, like a little kid. You've got to invest the belief that I have something to say and I can learn how to say it more smoothly. But today at 9 o'clock, I'm going to have to be willing to say it like that. That's confidence. And
yeah.
so your acronym helps to break it down into components, but it's really coming from that core belief that there's a painting in me of multicolors and that the world will benefit from having it. And I have to learn how to apply it in the messiness of this newness.
I'm right here now teaching my oldest daughter how to drive. We are doing that.
It's frustrating for both parties, and it's part
Exactly.
of life. It's part of
It's
graduation. It's not
it's a
smooth.
lot of practicing for a mother as well. I can say you
Yeah.
how to
Well, so you're
explain.
practicing patience
Exactly.
because you believe in her and you know she'll get it.
Yeah.
But today is not pleasant. And she's like, just leave me alone, mom. It's like, no, I can't leave you alone. And that takes, and so, yeah, it's a dance
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it'll
And I
work.
think it's confidence in both of us has confidence that she will make it. She will come
Yes.
there, and then she will learn. And it's good in that sense that you are too, because sometimes you can feel like you are a bit lost and not confident enough, so to say. But having someone besides you, with a coach
Yeah.
or anyone else, that will also infuse that confidence sometimes when
Yes.
doubt.
You will give her the support she needs, and it won't feel like support sometimes in the moment. When she steps back, she knows mom is helping me. But in the moment, mom is pestering me.
Mm.
That's how it feels. With a supervisor, take it out of the mother-daughter role, with a coworker, cross-functionally. The beginning of a difficult conversation is they want to be left alone and they want your help. And both are true, but it's like that. Like they want your support, but they're like, get away from me because you're pointing out things from your experience you see they don't see, and they don't want that. So they're shutting the door, they're opening the door, they're shutting the door. And that happens with whoever you work with.
And I think that is Also, if you're working in an organization as a manager or such, it's the constant that too, because someone, you maybe know something really good and you're skilled in that. That's why you became a manager, maybe because you have done something really good and skilled in that. And helping others to learn that, sometimes you need to actually instill that confidence in them instead of telling them exactly how to
Yes.
constant.
And letting them have that awkward moment with the stick shift,
Yeah.
as it were, if we stick with that analogy. Yeah. Learn to use the clutch. And you could do it quicker yourself, but then we can't expand. If someone new doesn't learn it, then you got to keep doing it. And that's what happens when managers are micromanagers. If it's going to be done right, I have to do it myself. Well, then why have a team?
You say that momentum is a choice and a process, and I think we are touching it a bit on how we are talking here. But can you elaborate a bit more about that? Why it's a choice and a process?
Yeah, so first we say what the stuck state is. And the stuck state is when our energies are competing and not flowing in the direction of what we talked about before, our highest intention in this project or this initiative. And so that drains us, but it doesn't move. The best way to illustrate it, since we're on cars, is one foot on the brake and the other on the gas. And if we turn up the gas, we get a lot of noise, but we don't really get smooth movement. So the process has 4 dimensions, and they're not steps, because steps imply you go 1, 2, 3, 4, then you're at the top and you're done. It's more like a wheel, but at the center, true north is always your dominant intention. And so we have practices to constantly reconnect to the energy of that intention. Then the second dimension, so we don't graduate from one, we keep going. That's true north, that's our compass. Second dimension is we make a plan. But different from your strategic planning or your business planning is it's not a set sense of having figured it out and having this plan. Keep doing that kind of planning. I don't say stop that. But the momentum piece is making very clear agreements that are within your control, because so much of it is outside your control. What can I do right where I am with what I have? And you make that agreement and you do that as best you can from this energy that we talked about before. And the third dimension is managing your agreement. High performing teams have a higher level of agreement than lower performing teams. They're not smarter, they're not better human beings, they're not more gifted, but they just reach this level of agreement. So whether I'm working with an individual or a team, we're looking at raising the level of agreement. And the way we do that is we take each agreement as sacred. It's within your control, and you can only do a few things with it. You can keep it. Like I told Hannah, I'd be here at 10 Central Time. Or you amend it, which is you say, my wife went to the hospital and I have to reschedule that. Or you break it. And if you break it, you clean it up. And the way you clean it up is by making a new agreement and keeping it. And this happens all the time. The fourth thing is you dissolve it. Sometimes you make the wrong agreements. But if we focus on the first three, we're in good shape. Because what we can do is we can exercise our agreement muscles. Commitment is internal. Nobody but you and God knows your level of commitment. But agreement is external. You say you'll show up, you show up, bright-eyed like you are this morning, and we build on that. And so managing agreements is the currency to raising your level toward your highest ideal. And you start right where you are with what you have. And sometimes amending agreement is making it smaller. I haven't made sales calls in 10 years and I say I'm going to do 100 a week. Well, if you haven't done any in 12 years, we suggest you start with 5. It's like it's understanding where you are. In the physical realm, that would be push-ups. You haven't done them in 30 years and say, well, I used to do 100. Well, yeah, you were 24 years old and you weighed 124 pounds. We suggest you start with 1. Is 1 push-up enough? Well, yeah, if you haven't done it in years. And they say, what would it take to double it? And all of a sudden you got 2. So momentum is a process and it's so simple. And the fourth dimension is just asking for what you want. And what the coach helps you do is see the number of ways that we think we're asking for what we want. And we're actually asking for what we don't want, but we don't even know it. Can you think of an example where you're not asking for what you want, but asking for what you don't want? Can you think of an example in your world?
Yeah, well, where I'm sometimes it's when I go into a meeting that I really want maybe to work with that person or such, but maybe I'm too afraid to ask that if that.
Good.
So that is from my perspective.
Yeah, and sometimes the way we ask leads to an almost automatic no. Like,
Yeah.
so for example, if I'm looking for a job and I promised my wife I would go door to door looking for a job, and I knock on your door and I said, you wouldn't happen to be hiring anyone, would you? And they say, not right now. And then I go away. I could literally tell my wife I asked 10 people for a
Yeah.
job, but really you were asking them to say no, thank you,
Yeah.
because you weren't asking with confidence. You
Mm.
weren't asking. So we work on asking in a way that opens people, that makes them more receptive. You're still going to get no's. It may be that this isn't the time and we can't hire you to do a workshop, but you're going to impact first your desire to keep asking. And they're saying, gosh, I really like the way you showed up at this meeting. Right now, it's not going to work, but please come back in the fall. Because you asked better, you got more than just a no, you got real engagement. And so that brings us right back to the first dimension. That's why it's a circle, which is your core intention communicates. And it communicates through the way you show up, which is one of the first things you said in our conversation. The way you show up. If you show up from core intention energy, you will increase the number of yeses. And you'll also, more importantly, in this age of resilience, increase the ability to deal with the setbacks and the no's. Because no matter how well you ask, you're going to get no's. It's part
Yeah.
of the process. But
Yeah.
if they devastate you and you say, oh, I failed, then you're not going to keep in momentum.
Yeah, there is a guy here in Sweden. He says that you leak what you think. And I think that is a really good one. So if because it's, as you say, if you don't really are confident in what you are doing and providing and such, how can the others be confident in that too? Because
It's a form of
sure.
communication. It comes out
Yeah.
unintentionally.
Yeah.
Technically, you asked for what you wanted, but your whole body and your heart and your eyes and your voice communicated doubt.
Yeah.
And they might not have consciously said, well, she's not very confident, but they pick up on it.
And I think those people that are really good in, so to say, showing really that I say this and I show it with who I am, how I do it, they are more trusted, even though that we don't agree on things. I still trust them more because they are
Yes.
aligned in what they do and how they do it. And even
You're
though,
more receptive,
yeah.
more open, and then the right ask will meet what you need, and then you'll say yes.
So, and I think that is coming back to the value part. I think organizations, they work a lot around values and how important they are together with the vision and so on. But I think they need to learn even more on how to express and show the values in their daily work, because I think that will build the trust going forward as well for that organization and with their clients and within the organization, if the leaders and the people working there really have alignment in the values and vision and so
And
on.
how are they demonstrating it? You're right. How are they demonstrating it? Not
Yeah.
just are they saying it, how are they demonstrating it?
I had actually at one of the companies I worked on for a long time ago, there were two guys, two new senior leaders. They were presenting themselves in front of us all. And both of them said that, oh, it's so important to listen on each other. By listening on each other, we learn together. And later on, I met both of those guys. I had asked one question around this, and the first guy, he said, oh, it was you that asked these questions. I'm really interested to hear more about this. And he really looked interesting and interesting in what I said and so on. So I really felt like him I can trust. The other guy, he was looking somewhere else. And I said to him that I have a suggestion on improvements here. You wanted to hear? Oh, no, 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 no. I don't have time. I know what to do. So it was really easy to understand that I don't trust him. I trust the other guy. So
Yeah,
if I had
good
something to
example.
talk about, I went to him instead. I don't, I think both of them, they were not aware of what they were doing.
And so what you describe is what we call paraverbal communication. So we have verbal, nonverbal, and paraverbal. And we pick up the paraverbal. We often can't articulate it. Like there's some people that just rub you the wrong way, and they might not be able to describe it looking at the cell phone, not giving me eye, but they felt it. And
Yeah.
that's paraverbal communication. It was nothing they said, it was the way they showed up. And really, a lot of executive presence, which I also teach, is about paraverbal communication. And is it aligned with the verbal and the nonverbal? And there's our clarity and alignment again, but
Mm.
it comes out subconsciously
Mm.
less than sometimes they couldn't even tell you. I don't know what it was about that guy, but I just didn't trust him. It was often if you had a transcript of what he said, he would have said the right things. My team is important to me, or whatever the script is. He got it
Yeah.
right, as far as the verbal. But
Yeah.
we said, no, he doesn't care about his team. We picked up
Mm. Mm.
the form of communication.
That's why you need a coach sometimes actually to pick those up, because you maybe you don't see it themselves. It's just there of automation, something you have learned from something
Yeah,
else.
and you can change it once you're aware of it. So
Exactly.
we always in our work with the Leadership Beyond, we start with self-awareness, then we move to self plus others, and
Mm.
then only lastly, self plus others plus work.
Yeah.
Because in life, there's a tendency to throw warm bodies at the work. We have
Mm.
a problem to solve. Maybe Hannah can do it, maybe Joe
Mm.
can do it, but it's not thought out.
Mm.
And we want to be much more, or it's only thought out in terms of competency, which is important. She can do it, but we
Mm.
need to ask, should she do it? And
Mm.
that was that example of the manager. The manager could do it, but the team wouldn't develop. So if the
Mm.
manager just did it, well, you have an individual contributor again. And so it's becoming more strategic about the employment of human resources, human capital.
I think we are in that sense now ending this conversation a bit, but I think it was a good ending of it, because it starts actually from where we began, in that sense that it's you that are steering, you are the leader. It starts from yourself in that sense.
And I call it, when I'm doing in a corporate world, when I'm doing personal coaching, I don't, but I call it your inner CEO.
Mm.
Because when you think of what a CEO is in charge of,
Yeah.
it's connecting to the vision, it's influencing the people to share the vision and to execute in it
Mm.
on the vision, but it's also allocation of resources. So when we're looking in the mirror, it's a question. I have 168 hours this week. This is my top value.
Mm.
How am I going to schedule my time to make space for this value to show up? And
Mm.
busy isn't going to do it. And then you have all these inner brats on the rocket ship. The voice of the appetite says, I'm hungry all day. And the voice of security says, oh, you'll never do that. Hide under a rock. And so the inner CEO has to work with all those inner brats to show up the way she chooses to.
So maybe that is the cue we should, or the question we should give to the audience today, the listener here. If you now are the inner CEO of yourself and the company you're working on, maybe, what is the one decision you will take, and what one action you will take this week
Yeah.
going forward? Just a simple one. What can you focus on that actually?
Yeah, what can you do right where you are with what you have?
Yeah.
And are you willing to demonstrate to yourself your ability to follow through and on this little thing? And then you
Yeah.
can build.
And at the
See
end
the
of
mountaintop and you take a step.
Yeah. And also at the end of the week, look back and see how did it go, and celebrate the success if that is the one, or celebrate that you have learned something new. And
And the flip side, no shame, no blame, begin again. So
yeah.
celebrate the wins and take a good look at the things you didn't do and re-ask the questions. How important is this? Where does this fit in? And am I willing to make a new agreement? And then just keep that agreement and forgive the past.
Really good one. And I think that is a good ending of this conversation. I have really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much for having me. This is a wonderful conversation, and I'm going to continue to follow your podcast and learn with you. And I'm honored to be part of this community.
And I will add in the show notes contact details so you find Tom easy and also can go in and view his work and see if you want to collaborate with him going forward.
Thank you, Hanna.
So thank you for being here and enjoy the rest of the day. We are in different time zones.
Enjoy that summer evening.
I will.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Inside of you.